DAS Today is a presentation of the Descendants of American Slaves, Inc. with Dr. Gerald Higginbotham. For more information, visit descendantsofamericanslaves.com.
Hi, welcome to the DAS Today Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gerald Higginbotham. I'm also the Senior Vice President of American Slave Nation and the spokesperson for the Descendants of American Slaves. And boy, do we have a show for you today. I'm so honored. I'm down here in hot Atlanta. And I'm sitting here with the... Would you say it is today? Yeah. You know what? We have a guest speaker, a guest on my radio show today that's just, he's going to be a blessing to you. This young man here, he's been featured in many things. The president gave him the highest level medal that you could have in the history of America. I believe it's called the Freedom. Help a brother out. Oh, you got so many of them up there. He's got the Freedom Medal Award of Honor. And I guess I don't want to throw her name out there too, but you know what? They gave it also at the same time with this young lady called Oprah Winfrey.
That's right. There were 15 of us, really.
15 of us? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what?
You would know all the names.
Well, I saw you up there and I said, Lord Jesus, I know that young man. And you just was up there so gracefully, and I said, I got to get my friend and mentor on the show. Today, I have Dr. C.T. Vivian, Cordy Vivian here, and it's an honor. This young man here, I'm not going to give you his age, but I'll tell you what, he's close to 100. Yeah. And he's still going strong. For all those folks out there talking...
91 will do it.
Oh, 91?
I'm close to 91.
Well, okay. I didn't want to go there, but since
But I want to go there, but I just want to do it in 10 years.
Well, you know, I didn't want to tell his age, but since he done threw it out there, yeah, he's 91 and he's a live wire going strong. Are you the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference?
No, but I have been.
You have been?
Yeah.
Well, tell me something, Dr. Vivian. First off, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah.
Tell me, now, you've been on this planet here for a few years, and we're going to get into the descendants of American slaves. This young man here was one of Dr. Martin Luther King's lieutenant, and so he can tell us a few things. He done been there, done that. He's been down to the Selma. 91 years on the planet. He know a couple things. Tell me, how was Dr. King when you guys walked together here? I want to really hit on that because he's kind of like someone that I've looked to, you know, ever since his assassination. It was basically my late 10-year-old birthday present. Sure. I've always admired him. I said I wanted to find out why they assassinated him and how all this community stuff is connected. And tell me a little bit about Dr. King.
But when you talk about Martin, what you really talk about is the greatest man of our time. Black, white, yellow, pink, or polka dot, right? You know, he has the tallest, although the height is not important, but he has the tallest statue on the American Mall. Plus the fact he's the only black man to do it, right? He's the only minister of all the millions of ministers there's been in this country. Only one has made the American Mall, and that has been Martin. Martin was given in fact, the only minister to ever get from Europe. His work has changed the very nature of American life. And we've been here several hundred years. And here he changed the very relationships between black and white in this whole nation. No matter how hard they tried for slavery, we have overcome it. And they thought they had it together, and Martin changed it totally, right? When you think about the meaning of that, you've got to think about that because of that relationship, we have gone through a civil war about that, right? We've had this whole nation hangs right there. Is that?
Are you saying that today?
Yeah, oh yeah, it still does. We have not yet, I'll give it to you another way. In fact, the great-granddaughter of Lee, General Lee, who was head of the Confederacy, right, said that this craziness about flags and black and white and so forth has to change because, well, she wouldn't have said that before Martin. Right? But she now knows it. the whole world knows that America is not worthy of being called a democracy. It's not worthy of being called a Christian nation, because we have never really gone out of our way to live up to it, right? We've talked about it. We have signs and hang crosses on the wall, right? But we have not yet become any time that one Christian can't sit down and talk with another or go to church with each other, right? And somebody's not a Christian. And because Christ said, "Ye must love one another as I have loved you. By this will you know that you are my disciple." All right.
We're about to have church up in here.
Yeah. Well, see, the point is that that's what we haven't had, is the proper kind of church. In fact, it's interesting that the great founder of the AME Church, one of the first to really break off and form our own church, is that he was in the place, he was in the white church. That's all that existed at the time in terms of buildings and so forth. And they told him he couldn't take communion with them. There are still churches that don't want that. It's the same thing. There are white churches in the South that still don't want you to marry each other, right?
Are we still... Well, that's still part of, and I don't mean to cut you off, Doc.
No, that's all right.
But I think, would you agree that that's still an after effect of slavery?
Of course, it's all after but the point is that slavery is what made that possible. Is that because that slavery is what made the whole thing possible.
So you're saying that slavery is what helped create the American dream?
I'm saying both. I'm saying that the American dream never was realized not because of slavery, but because there were slavers. And one of the things that we don't talk about is, well, whose fault is it? Who created it? Who kept it going? Who murdered people so that they could have it? Who, in fact, one of the things that you can really ask, and this is, I did workshops for over 20 years, and when you ask certain kinds of questions, people didn't want to answer them. But the workshop starts with, we're going to tell the truth, right?
The whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God.
But we'll do that, and that's terribly important. And so it becomes clear that you can't tell the truth about in the classrooms of this nation. You can only suggest what might be or what has been or what we could do, but they don't want to talk about how it's been done, who created it, who kept racism going, who are the racists in effect, all right? We're not the racists. We have done nothing to white people to make them hate us. They have done everything to make us hate them, and we have not hated them in spite of it, right? Because our Christianity would not allow it, all right? Is that, which means that when you start talking about the Christian faith, we are the ones that are more Christian, than any in the country. And
that's proof of that with this killing down here in South Carolina. The people didn't.
Yeah, see, in fact, we never ended up hating them. In fact, the whole service and so forth was done in our church, all right? I mean, in an African-American church, right? Because I never remember a time when there was anything about my life and my parents' life and my grandparents' life, right, where we hated white folk, where we put them down and said that you're not good enough to be in our church, that there's been no time for that, right? And now the reply is, well, I knew a black man who said that he didn't like the way he was treated. He was supposed to say he didn't like the way he was treated. That's the only way to tell the truth in this nation, right? But that didn't mean that he hated because of it, all right? And there are those that would say, well, we should have been mad. We may have been mad, but we didn't hate. And I tell you what, we were the most forgiving people in this country, all right? And had more to keep us from forgiving anybody than anybody else that's lived in this country, right? Because we've been treated worse than anybody else that's lived in this country. But in spite of it, and still are, really, but in spite of it, we haven't gone out on killing rampages to get rid of white people or to show them or to put up with them, right? We just haven't, because our faith before we came here and after we came here was strong enough to deal with both. And I think we have to talk about, because of what your title is, that we have to talk about before and as well as after, is that because we, except for a very few, are the descendants of slaves.
And that brings me to where I really want to hit on, because, see, we have been really America is a nation. It's a corporation. It operates off of codes, proper laws, legal documentation. And when they release the slaves after the Civil War, they improperly released them. They didn't put them in the American pecking order. They didn't release Black Americans or African Americans. These were the American slaves, those that were born in the South. Slavery was a business. It wasn't personal. It was business because America needed someone to build up our nation. And so
they needed someone not only to build it with their hands, but to be used and misused so that they could become wealthy, instead of giving the slave a chance to become fully human and become a part of a nation where money means everything, right? Is that we were never allowed to do that. Isn't it interesting that only black people were treated that way?
I want to make sure descendants of American slaves were treated that way.
That's right.
And the only reason why I'm really hard on this right now, because anything that we want to get done, we're going to have to, we can't do it through the political process because they're so wimpy, they won't stand up and say the American slave culture. We're going to have to go to the Supreme Court to really get justice on this one here, because slave is a legal term. And if you're going to operate in the legal system, you have to use proper terminology.
That's a good point.
Calling it black and African American. Black is a color, it's a description.
That's right.
It's not a nationality. It's not a culture. It's not a race. That's but right. The slave was a title. And if you go into the Supreme Court, you got to come there with the right name. And African American is a United States immigration term that they gave for those whites and blacks that legally came here looking for the American dream and wanted a job and wanted to make some money. And once they passed that test, they awarded them the term African American. So America doesn't owe African Americans nothing. They can go back to their country. But the American slaves that were birthed in this nation, national citizens, have birthrights. And so that we have to get that piece corrected in order to move the identity, because we've been called, would you agree, slaves? Now, you've been on the planet, you said 91 years. They've called us slaves, colored, Negro, black. Now we've perpetrating the fraud, trying to be.
There are other names too.
I didn't want to go there.
It doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter.
Because you're really talking about what is legal. The way that we write it, all of these terms have been legal at one point or the other. But the important thing is that we have been here longer than most all. And during workshops, I've asked questions about how long was your grandfather born here? Was your great-grandfather born here? Was your great-great-grandfather born here? And along that line, they have to end up saying no.
Well, and see, every culture that...
But the point is, we don't.
That's where I was going.
The thing is, we have been here before most other groups have been here. Now, they decided to call everybody white that wasn't us, all right, or wasn't Mexican, or as long as you had a whitish color. You no longer were a Frenchman. You were a white person. You were no longer a German. You were a white person.
Why did they do that? Why did you think they did that?
Why do I think it is right? The right way to ask it is because, see, there's so little talk about so many things, right? That you have to go through a process of trying to be as honest as you can in everything that you deal with this subject. Is that I think they did it because there was few of them, and there were so many of others that were not white. And then they made it so that, for instance, if you killed an Indian, it was all right? You didn't take that to the court, right? Because you just said, well, see, they wouldn't let us have their land.
Right.
And because of our laws, quote unquote, they have to live by our way of life. And if they don't, well, and they don't like it, well, we got a right to kill them. Is that there's never been honesty between the majority of white people and the rest of this country. Is because the idea, and strangely, they came into this land, which didn't belong to them, and the people here didn't try to teach them how to feed themselves because they didn't know how to farm here, right? And most died the first time, that first winter, right? But so when it came time to plant, Indians taught them how to, in fact,
survive
and to get ready for the next crop and the next crop, right? Now, the point being is that white Americans had never been mistreated on this land by any non-white person. But the non-white persons here didn't mind killing anybody who wasn't white. Plus the fact they didn't even have to go to court for it. The whole West, really how we look at it, to think about it, but it was the way the law worked in the United States.
That's why it's important that if we're going to get anything accomplished, especially as we have to go through the court system and get it established right. And we're working on the American slave culture as a protected class like Native American. I know that we've got some lawyers now that we're talking with that are really excited about it because we now have really become laser focused and pinpointed the issue. The issue is that it's been an identity crisis because we've got the slaves color. We've been called all the different names, but we have to really laser focus that piece down to identity and get the American slave culture in its proper pecking order, as these are America's firstborn. They have birthrights and the descendants representing a culture, not any individual, because slavery was a business. The second thing was having a systematic ABCD plan that leads them right into mainstream America so that they can have business ownership. And since our nation is a nation of commerce, they never taught the slaves about how to do business.
Well, we did business anyway, and a lot of business has been done by African Americans. I think what you really want to do is to say, but who was born here and who was not, all right?
That's correct.
So that we can prove that we were born here. That's why I have the painting there of 6 generations of us, of our family, right?
So you have documented yours?
Yeah, that's the point. And I think the real genius of your program, all right? I'm glad for your program. And I think the real genius of it is, though, is that you are making certain that we prove so that we can then go from there in a way that we cannot be denied. The rights that were supposed to be given to former slaves, all right, is that because not everyone was in fact a slave. And what I like is that you're asking to prove that. Because when you prove one, you're proving the other, right? But I also like the idea, and you're not the first to have the idea I'm going to suggest right now, but you know about it, of course. And not only that, we've talked, but even in spite of that, it would be very real if you had some proof of that. I've always wanted a gold pin, a small gold pin, don't want any huge thing, but just a small pin. Is that, in fact, I have my ring, I have it all done out in my ring so that I know what we first did, how we were here as slaves, how we were here as owners, how we were here as educators and educated, right? How we see the future, right? And I think over a period of time, all of us are going to have something that says we are, right? Is it because that's who things were to be given to, and not if you're black or not black, right? Is that you are in fact, was at one time, you were born one time as a member of a family that also came here and was born here and lived here and worked here and either worked here in one form or the other, under one title or the other. Or even before the Constitution was signed, we were fighting for this country, right? I mean, when I say fighting for it, I don't mean we were trying to become part of it. I mean, we fought to be Americans, gun to gun. In fact, as far as we know, the first man that was killed trying to declare freedom in this land, right, was not white, was black, right? It was a part of the desire to make America his home. There is no war that we have fought in the United States that African Americans were not a part of, right? And gave their blood for it, or was willing to and was involved in the process.
Now, I'm being that stickler, you say African Americans, and see...
Well, we are that.
But we are Americans that was born here. The seed came from Africa.
But that's same thing as if you were German, right? Is that you didn't have to be born here to be a German, be it that your only connection with America was the fact that you were German and Germans live here, right? It was of the fact that you were born here, lived here, and your history is German, but your lifestyle has been American from the very beginning.
But see, here's where I'm going with this, Doc. And our culture was born through the birth of slavery here in this nation.
Yeah.
The American slave
and
culture.
the German was too.
But he wasn't a slave. They immigrated.
I understand that. But you see, is that you're going to be very, very careful, all right? Is that it's wise to say it so that it's fine for you either way to say it. Is that, and this is what you have to be able to do, because you have to prove that you are an American and that you came out of, in your case, that you were part of a slave culture. Right. Before you were part of the American culture.
But here's what I'm trying to say, Doc. If that African Americans, based upon the U.S. immigration term, people that come over, because see, there's a lot of white African Americans here in America. They come over here, and if we just throw the name African American out there, they can say that I was part of the slave trade. What I'm trying to do is make sure that we nail down those that was born on those plantations, natural born citizens. Like, for example, on my U.S. passport, it doesn't say African American. It says nationality, United States of America.
But it didn't always say that.
We're talking birthrights versus green card.
I agree. But I mean, we were slaves here, and they wrote slaves. And I got a thing here I'll show you that's, where it's all written out. That you're a slave, right?
Right. All I'm just trying to make sure we nail down is because, see, there's people that were born in Africa that comes here for whatever legal citizenship versus the national born American slave that came through the business.
Yeah.
Because see, slavery was a business.
I agree. Is that the point being is that we have become and are accepted. Laws are written already that place us as a part of the United States, right? This is what we were fighting for. That's what each struggle that we've had in this country has been around the right to vote, for instance, all right? It's one of the major things. Well, why? And we were accepted, the laws written with us in it. Now, that you are proving something else, however. You are proving that we came from the beginning of this country. We were here before those other laws were written, right? This is a marvelous thing, because what you're really saying is that I can prove that I belong here. I can prove that I fought for this country. I can prove that this country should never reject me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, Doc, we got to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Rare Gem Productions, uniquely positive.
Really, one thing could throw you off your game completely.
Speaking as an individual with a mental illness, when you get up in the morning, you can start off having a very bad day. It can just take a small thing.
You could be dealing with that hit for the longest.
And it affects everything you do for that day. And possibly you might miss a medication, or take it too late. That causes problems. You might not feel well otherwise, and that affects your mental health. It might be raining, and that affects your mental health. So all the things that other people kind of take for granted, people with mental illness struggle with.
It doesn't have to take you out. You can work it out.
And some of the keys to success with that is that you have to learn about your predictable, and yes, they are predictable emotional responses. You have to educate yourself, and we have to restore balance in our lives when this happens.
Be determined to bounce back. Find more ways to take 5. Go to AliveandWellSTL.com.
As a result of that is that they made you a slave, right? You didn't come here as a slave. You were made a slave. And that's them, but you were a part of this culture. Still are. Can't help but be. I mean, your culture was that you were a slave in America. And what you did was still part of making you a slave. And even if you bought yourself out of slavery, which many people did, all right, you still go back to slavery. You see what I mean? And you got to watch that, because you've got to make it so that either way it's taken, all right, that you were a slave, because that's what your title says, that reparations are paid to those who were slaves and the children of slaves.
And one of the things that I want to be really clear on when I talk with folks, and that is reparations is only a piece of it. I'm talking about also birthrights.
Yeah, but birthrights and slavery. See, but the point is, if you want them to get paid for it, you got to say you were slaves here.
Well, that's true. That's a foregone. But I'm also talking about birthright, because we are confused with our group of thinking that they're still from Africa, but yet they still was born here in America. And they cut the ties.
Now you got me mixed up.
Let me explain. Let me explain.
Please, I want you to.
I'm not going back to Africa. I don't know nothing about it.
That's right. You don't have to know.
But this here
because
is my mother.
You're a child of.
Right.
So you don't have to talk about now. You have to say, as brought here as a slave, I am a part of this culture. All right. In fact, I am so much a part of this culture that you couldn't have had the culture you have now without us.
That's correct.
All right? So you don't have to spend a lot of time. All you have to do is that I was born a slave. My great-grandparents or whatever grandparent, right, was a slave. And I am an outcome of that fact, right? And if you're talking about
a proud descendant of American slaves.
Of course, but you don't have to have that in the title.
Well, the only reason why I say that is
and you don't have to say, I was a proud member, and when they kicked me, I said, yes, sir.
The reason why I say that is, Doc, because when you say that word slave, it has associated with a negative term.
It has a whole history of slavery.
And folks do not want to even accept that.
I understand, but you want.
So I try and paint the picture, the other side of it.
Ex-slave. Your title says ex-slave.
No, my title says I am the Senior Vice President for the American Slave Inc., the spokesperson for the descendants of American slaves.
That's it. But if you're a descendant of American slave, you're saying is that I was descendant of, and the process made me a slave. I don't have to be a member of the organization to say I too was a slave. And you say, prove it, and you can be a part of my organization. Then you're ready for reparations. But you can't be ready for reparations if you don't prove that you didn't just come in or like Italians jump off the boat and swim.
That's where I'm going.
I know you are, and that's what I'm trying to get you to see, is that you have to go through the whole process. And the thing is if you don't, it's hard to believe that you have no proof. Just being black in America isn't proof. Remember,
well, there's a lot of folks that are white in America thinking that they're black here.
Of course, but they get by with whatever it is if they can prove they're white, right? See, because
we just had an issue with the NAACP out on the West Coast. Someone thinking,
what you mean?
They're thinking that they were white.
Oh, you mean like the woman? She didn't say that. She says, I am psychologically black. I am black because I choose to be black. She says, I know my skin is white and I know my parents are white, right? But I want to be black because inside me, it's just like gayness, right? A gay person doesn't have to say, I'm not a human being, but I'm gay. You get my point? They don't have to say that. They are that, period, right? They are proud they're gay. We just don't expect anybody to be proud to be gay, right? Because we've never done it. We've never allowed them to be accepted as fully human, right? But when you're psychologically gay, you're just gay, right? It doesn't matter whether anybody likes it or not. This is what the track star is saying, just as another one to prove it, right? Is that, if you're psychologically, and I remember a little kid when I was way back in grade school.
A couple years ago, huh?
Yeah, a couple years ago. 5, really. And this kid, you looked at him and you knew he was gay. I mean, he was just a kid, but you knew he was gay, right? And just for the way he moved and everything else, is that, and there wasn't anything wrong with the boy, except that, he wasn't old enough yet to know he was gay, right? But he knew that he was different from everybody else, right? And the point is, and you can tell by who he liked and who he didn't like, right? Everything about him said, you are gay, all right? But you see, he couldn't say that, even though he wanted to. I mean, the boy was so gay. I mean, he just wanted to say he was gay, right? But the point is that whether he wanted to say it or not, he was gay. Now he's accepted. And he knows where to go and who to be with and who he doesn't have to look up to or look down on, right? It's all very clear.
The thing I want to switch, here's the pilot in me because I got to get us back on course.
Okay.
You said something about psychologically, just like you just mentioned, inside, mentally, they see themselves as that.
That's it.
Do you think that we're still dealing with also PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome?
Yeah, but the point is, we've only had some psychologists to tell us that. We know that we am a part of, and here's the proof that I'm a part of, right?
That's why the identity, the birthright piece is so important, that you can prove that I am a American, a descendant of American slave, and I was
that's right.
affected through that heritage.
But I was affected and needed, and now I ask for my heritage rights. If you can't prove that, you could have come from anywhere. You could be born by any place, and you don't deserve that part of it. You came long after that, right? Your first people landing here came far after that. They came from the islands, and they may be Brazilians, but they don't come on your money. The point is, you're getting reparations because you were American slaves, not Brazilian slaves.
That's exactly where we got to go, is to make sure that we've got that identity piece nailed.
That's it.
Because when we nail that piece there, we can prove that, yes, we are Americans.
Yeah.
We are descendants of American slaves that were affected by the slave trade commerce that took place here that built this great nation.
Well, yeah, as soon as you say you're a slave, Doc, that's taken for granted. You don't have to worry about that. You can say it any way you want to say it, because as soon as you say you're a slave, they know doggone right that you were commerce and that you helped build this nation and all that. That comes with just the word slave. It's nice to go on with the rest of it. It's like, what's his name that has raped all these women, right? Is that you say he can't prove it legally that he did or didn't do it. He doesn't have to. If 50 some people stand up and say, you raped me, you can believe it's real. See what I mean? You see what I mean? Is that it doesn't matter what he tries to say, right? Is that they're all sitting there saying, I want one of those magazines.
I saw the magazine with all the pictures of the women there, and they left a chair for the one that hadn't showed up.
That's exactly right.
It made a very powerful statement.
It did, because it's socially accepted that you were raped and he did it, right? It's not like you were wandering down the street sometime and somebody raped you. Right? It's like he did it, and he did it by giving me what is it?
Whatever he gave him.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean it's
Quaalude or
Quaalude or something.
A date rape pill or something.
Yeah, a date rape pill, because there's various kinds of them, right? There's 3 or 4 of them, right? And I don't think there's a lot of them though.
Well, we can use that same principle as it relates to the American slave culture. You had 4 million people in the country and it exploded to 36 million. These folks here was
the parents of these people.
The parents here came here.
Great-grandparents.
And that slavery was a lot of rape and abuse. So that birthright piece is very important, especially for defining who will get reparation in this process.
Well, I agree. This is why I didn't try to understand why we weren't on the same track, is because as soon as you say slave and your parents were American slaves, right, and they were brought here against their will, all right, you got it already. I mean, all the rest of it is you can just write what you want. But you've got to first prove that you did, that your great-great-grandparents or whatever. See, I got my setting right.
So you all set and ready to go,
yeah, I'm ready to go, Doc. I'm ready to get mine. But you see, I'm ready to prove I don't have to do that to vote, all right? I have to do that to get reparations. You see what I mean?
Yes, and you're exactly right.
Yeah, and see, this whole thing to me is good for reparations, but you can take it for granted for everything else, but you can't take it for granted on reparations, is because anybody can step up in front of you and say, my grandfather came from here. Well, prove it. And that's a whole nother thing. See, and what you're going to have is a body of materials that can't be beat. And you're going to find that it can be used in a lot of ways other than just this one.
You'll be able to use it for many, many things.
That's right. See, that's the point. Is that, but if you don't prove it, you can't use it for much.
Well,
you can talk about it.
Well, Doc, I want to just thank you for taking time out your schedule to allow us, the DAS Today Show, to be here in Atlanta to talk with you about this subject. Yeah. I know you've been on the mission for a long time. You're still out there at 91, working to make a difference.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah, they never gave me anything else to do.
Hey, I just want to say I'm so proud of you for what you have done and what you've done for the civil rights movement and, what you did over there in Montgomery and Selma, Alabama. I want to say thank you because I know without what you guys did, we really wouldn't have the right to vote.
That's right.
But,
That's exactly right. And we wouldn't have a lot of other rights. But I tell you what made it happen was a combination that made it really succeed, was the combination of Martin King and nonviolent direct action. See, nonviolent direct action is really all you need. If Martin hadn't had nonviolent direct action, he wouldn't have succeeded. And if he hadn't succeeded, we wouldn't have succeeded, right? And me too, right? See, all of us, right? Is that Martin was our spokesman, and he did a job. Is that when you really consider that he did a job, but he was backed up by nonviolent direct action. And that's what made us all able to really work. We were defeated, and like Jim Farmer, he didn't get it, he didn't make it, right? And he was excellent debater and all that kind of stuff, right? But he didn't have a method that could cut it. Gandhi had a method that could cut it. So he changed all India. And in the process, changed the whole British Empire. Hadn't been anything like it since the Roman Empire, right? And he changed it because he had nonviolent direct action. And he put it, and Martin knew about it. And in fact, it started in America anyway, but we didn't have as much need for it, right? But he could read it and understand it in such a way that it made a difference. See, and this is it. In fact, I read this stuff too, and I didn't think anything about it. But when Gandhi used it, I really said, hey, this boy has something. He says, but I got it from your boy who was in jail right outside of Boston. I said, what? I read that, but I was in high school. And I couldn't transpose it. Martin was getting a PhD at the time, right? And then not only that, had a lot more material. Gandhi had done all of his work, right? And it was out there for all of us.
And the timing was right.
Yeah. Well, we could have used it any time after Gandhi did. So, Gandhi had used it. We could have used it any time after Gandhi. But the point is, it wouldn't have been precisely like, but it would have been the same way. And the same stuff. You see what I mean?
Let me ask you this question here, because with us, having shifted from an industrial-based society to the information age, do you think that process will still work today?
In fact, we're going to have to make something like it work, but it's a step beyond that. See, because right now, we don't know what this nation is going to be in another 20, 25, 30 years. And I tell you why I say that is because right now, the billionaires are really building. I have a whole thing around this. This is my thing, like that's your thing. I want to see it happen, right? Because I believe it so. But I'd rather it didn't happen. The way I'm going to say it, right?
Well, bring it on, Doc.
No. I mean, the point being is that the billionaires of this country,
they're nervous.
No. They're just buying everybody.
Oh, right.
We're the ones that should have to be nervous. Give me a point? Because there will be nothing for us, and I don't mean black, there will be nothing for us poor people. All right? Because we're going to have to do whatever they say you have to. You do this and you can work. And if you work, you can get paid. If you don't do this, you're not going to get paid. And if you don't get paid, you can't eat, right? Everything finally comes down to
money. Can
you exist? Only reason for money is to help you exist, right?
That is a good thought.
That's right.
And I hope that don't come true.
That's what I meant a while ago. And I said, I'd rather it didn't happen, right? But the way I see it is that, and when I said this to a woman who is now in Obama's legal arrangement, remember the black guy was head of the legal stuff.
Right.
And he left, right? Well, she was coming in about this time. She came in about that time. She was not equal to him, but she is right there with that group of lawyers, right? And she's a white woman in town. And I told her, she said, oh, no, it's not going to happen that way. I said, okay, just keep reading and watching, right? Mm-hmm. And she is coming to the whole idea, because various, if you read the op-eds pages, because that's what I like to read in New York Times, is the op-ed page. I like to read New York Times front page and the op-ed page and et cetera, because that's where it's at. But then
the op-ed page, the financial section, huh?
No, op-ed page. See, they have
explain that.
Well, you have the editorial page.
Okay,
op-ed is
editorial,
and the next page over is the editorial page. You see what I mean? Is that it's the opposite from the editorial page. You see what I mean? That's what I mean, op-ed, right? And I didn't know it. If I hadn't been in journalism, I wouldn't have known it either.
Learned something new today.
But the op-ed page is where it's at. That's where the brightest are, right? And that's where people who answer back to the brightest are. See, those two pages, right? When you open and you got one of them here is the editorial page, and then in this page is the op-ed page, right?
Got it.
Yeah, Doc. And
be some good stuff in there.
Oh, Doc, that's where it's at. That's just where it is at, right? And where you get your best arguments around all of this stuff, because you got the best letters coming back about this stuff. You got 2 good pages to make you think. And that doesn't mean, and there's plenty of arguments on there, but it'll make you think to decide, where am I on this, right? You know what I mean? Is that because, you can get up and say, man, he said this and this. Yeah, but the old guy over here said something opposite of that, or put a hole in it, or it made me think twice. And now I got to go back and say I don't know as much as I thought I knew, right? And this is what I love, right? Is that because that's the way it ought to be, I don't want to go around like these nutheads following every politician. And while the guy's talking there, oh, yeah. Is that, and then they're sitting in front of the television set later on, and somebody criticizes it. And he says, well, I believe both of them. You can't believe both of them. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of fun. See, journalism is the thing that's most important. And religion's the most important thing in my life. But journalism is the most important thing in my ability to move around within the confines of the world of thought. Then you go into find religion for really stuff.
I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
How would you like to see this world to be left after you're gone?
After I'm gone? Oh, I can. You mean the heaven thing, but on earth.
On earth.
All right. Is that I want to see this world where everybody is loving each other. And I mean love. That's what Jesus was talking about. Jesus didn't have to die for any of us, right? And he certainly didn't have to go on the cross. But he knew that the world could not be what he wanted it to be until we really went through this process. You've got to be able to be willing to suffer for what's right. All right? Got to do it. If you're not willing to suffer for it, anybody can put a gun in your face and say, you will do certain things. And you're more likely to do it if it puts a gun in your face. But if you are a Christian, you say, because my master wouldn't say it. In Germany under Hitler, they had troops all around the wall of one of the churches. And the guy who was the minister stood up and says, Christ, not Hitler, is my, whatever they call the leader, but did they call the leader? And I want to remember it because I like the statement, Christ, not Hitler, is my, whatever they called Hitler, right? Is that, see, that's it.
Gestapo.
No, it's a term. It was just for the head of, the head
leader.
Who was the leader of the country at the time, right?
Well, I want to just say once again, thank you for being on the DAS Today show.
Oh, yes.
You've added value, and our listening audience are going to enjoy the message today.
Thank you, my brother, and you deserve it. I'm just happy I know you.
And vice versa. Hey, well, listen, thank you once again. Peace and blessings to you, and we will talk to those again listening. Peace and blessings.
You can get all the notes and comments from today's shows out at www.descendantsofamericanslaves.com. And I want to say thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to ride with us today. Please send us your questions, your comments, your thoughts, and we're on our way. Fasten your seatbelt. We have been cleared for takeoff. This is the Captain Good Doctor speaking, and we say welcome aboard.
To learn more about Descendants of American Slaves, Inc., visit descendantsofamericanslaves.com for the blog, more about the organization, to donate, hear testimonials, and become enlightened on the plight and promise of descendants of American slaves.